Pads are useful for their purpose, but they are no substitute for brains.
All right, here we go.
I have to say, well done, Ray. Well done. Well played, my adversary. Well played.
Phoenix isn't gay, but if he was, he'd pick Fremont.
Oh yeah, he'd be living down there with you in the bunker, man. Woo!
Once you go free, you always do the Z.
Like one day I'm not going to Duncan, and you could get a controller, a new Xbox, possibly even a cord.
And now, the two guys that took 2 years to fix their audio problems.
Welcome to BGFG episode 321. I'm your host, Chris Phoenix, and unfortunately, Fremo could not be here again. He's having some troubles, but I'm sure he'll be with us sooner rather than later. So much. It's been crazy. I know people that listen, and you're in the car right now, and you have doubts, and you have fears, and you have issues, and we at BGFG just want to try to take you away from that for a few minutes and try to give you some other news and other things and other information and stuff like that. So, unfortunately, in our show, we do something called Not Coming Down for Breakfast. This started off as a way to let people know about celebrities that passed away, sports figures, things like that you might not have known. It all started off with Abe Vigoda, actually. Abe Vigoda was alive, and there was a website. There was a website that you could go to check and make sure Abe Vigoda was still alive, which Fremo and I found absolutely hysterical. So we actually use that in the show all the time. And then it just spurned on. But today is, or this episode is kind of important because we lost Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther fame. But, and people need to realize this, he was doing, like he made several movies that are just, they're great movies from a great actor. You need to read a little bit more about him if you only know him from Black Panther. Great movie, but you need to learn a little bit more about him. He had cancer the entire time he was doing these movies, and you wouldn't even know it. So, as we always do at BGFG, we're giving you a golden ticket and a towel, because you need a towel, and you need a golden ticket to get usually anywhere. So if you have one, you can just show it. Godspeed, and BGFG sends nothing but love to his family and friends. It's a terrible loss, but embrace what he did do, and do that. So enough of that. I could say enough of that negativity, but at the same time, we're going to go into a lot more.
BGFG News. You heard it here third.
So first up, and there's a few things that we talk about on the show regularly that usually either pisses us off or gives us a reason to complain. Oh, that went down the wrong pipe. One of those things is Facebook. Another one's AOL. BlackBerry. Well, BlackBerry we kind of just love to hate. But there's always something. And even though we're not political, we try to bring news, even if it's political, just news out there. So one of the things that Trump did was good, but at the same time it was bad. And again, we don't sit there and trash Trump or push Trump and endorse him. We just simply bring you the facts to the best of our ability. So, President Trump actually did some good. So what he did, the Trump administration itself decided to stop evictions completely, which is great because, again, a lot of people aren't going back to work because their kids aren't going back to school and they need to be home with their kids, so they're not going back to work. You have retail companies and a lot of companies staring down the barrel of Christmas time that are calling back people, and I can tell you from my personal experience that if you're called back and you can't go, you've just, given up your job, really. There's very few places that won't, but in the bigger chains, that's kind of the rule right now. If you don't agree to go back, you're abandoning your job, and it's unfortunate. So with this and the economy and everything else, there's evictions everywhere. We've said here on the show before that the best way to fight that, in our opinion, is if you did the lockdown when we were supposed to, and everybody locked down for 3-4 months, whatever it was, that would suspend all the rents, mortgages, evictions, banks, landlords. That would just put everything on pause. If you put everything on pause, there wouldn't be any problem. So if we did the lockdown in, say, I don't know, March, we did the lockdown in March, then you wouldn't have to pay rent March, April, May, June. Let's just say that. When that 4 months ended, if you couldn't afford your rent prior, you got a stimulus check. That should have been used instead of buying an 80-inch TV to maybe pay your rent when it was time to go back. When we all came out of lockdown, immediately rents and mortgages and things like that were due. That's what should have happened. Because if you could pay your rent in March, then you could definitely pay your rent in June. If you couldn't pay your rent in March, it's not going to change in June. You got a stimulus check, you got unemployment, you should have used it, but you maybe used it wrong. So there's a double-edged sword to this. And another thing that boggles my mind with this whole leniency toward evictions, the CDC is somehow in charge of this, which, again, doesn't make any sense. They're supposed to handle the economic fallout. I have no idea how the Center for Disease Control is supposed to be spearheading this. But again, I don't want to get it too deeply into Trumponomics, I guess, for lack of a better term. So there's a national 4-month moratorium. Those who make less than $100,000 a year and are unable to make house payments or rent payments, it's going to be, suspended. The problem is that the money's still going to pile up. A lot of these renters, and there is some outside this country. There's some in Canada that hold rights to some places here. There's people that don't live in your state. I know my landlords, or the owners of my house. We have a property manager, but the owner of my house lives in California. Again, they're not seeing anything here. They don't know what's going on here. They don't know any of that. They just, okay, we're supposed to accept rent in July or August. Okay, where's my rent? I get that, but it's still going to pile up. A lot of these renters and landlords and banks are going, well, you did get a pass for 4 months. Now you owe 4 months worth of rent. And I think that's where the problem's really going to take off. And add to the fact that there's landlords out there. I know a few people that own multiple properties, whether they were left to them in wills and things like that. I know a friend of mine owns 2 multi-level homes. And again, he takes care of them on his own. He lives in the first floor of one of them. But I'm pretty confident that he's making, and I know he works too part-time, so I'm pretty confident he's making over $100,000 a year. He's not going to have this luxury at all. So he's still going to have to pay his bills. How is he going to do that if he can't collect rent from anybody in the houses? So this is, in the long term, this could cause a lot more problems than it's solving right now. So again, when you see these things that come out and you go, wow, look, the government's doing something nice, look a little bit more closely and see what the long tail is of it. Because again, this is one of those situations where I know that if I wasn't paying rent for 4 months and then I had, at the end of the 4 months, on the 5th month, I had 4 months of rent to pay, I'll probably have the money, but that just because I saved and I thought about it, but I can't, geez, my daughters, both my daughters that are living on their own, if they didn't have us as guidance, they wouldn't know jack squat. They'd be screwed right now. It's, and again, you have to look at the long tail of these things and follow some of the news that we point out here on the show. We just point you in a direction. For example, the NSA, which is another one of those wonderful groups. So since September 11th, the NSA has issued what they call Section 215 to gather billions of phone records in preventative, to prevent another terrorist attack or anything like that. You're talking about daily call logs. Now, they've had this since 2013, the NSA has. And last year, we reported here on the show that they were told to stop. They had a court injunction, they were told to stop. They did stop, some ways, but they kept all the records, so they were hauled back into court. And yes, they've arrested some militant groups. I agree, but you were told to stop. Why do you still have the records? And this is what we always talk about here in the show, me and Fremo, about how you can't, once you let the cat out of the bag, it's over. You can't, there's nothing else to do. You let the cat out of the bag, you didn't do what you were supposed to do, and they're still holding on to records. It's kind of like Facebook. Once you go onto Facebook, everything that you put on there is there forever. Good luck trying to get it off. The Ninth District Court determined that this record collection was illegal and probably unconstitutional. But the odds of the NSA dropping it, I just don't see that coming. I really don't. They've had this information since 2013. They're probably still going through it. You're talking billions. They could drop a dime on a bunch of people, and I hope they do, in the right way, in the constitutional way. But again, just keep looking at the news properly, because sometimes things get weird. A good case of an example would be the CDC and the numbers. I can't tell you how many times at work in the past 2 weeks I was confronted with people that were talking about COVID. Oh, the COVID numbers are all a lie. The COVID numbers are not a friggin' lie, people. Oh, and it drives me crazy. So here's some education that you can give to the sheep. So the CDC reported that 94% of deaths had underlying conditions. Smart people actually know that. They do have underlying conditions. That's kind of the way it is. When they compare the flu numbers and everything, it's the same thing. You don't really die of the flu, or pneumonia for that matter. You die from underlying conditions, whether you were a smoker since you were 12 years old. Well, if you get pneumonia, you're going to have an extremely hard time breathing. If you're up in age and you haven't worked out and you haven't exercised, that's going to be a friggin' problem, man. These are underlying conditions. Only 6% of the deaths were COVID-related directly. Yes, 6% that's roughly 9,000 people died from straight COVID. I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm pretty confident they're not that high of people that are dying straight from the flu. You'd have to either get a really bad strain of the flu, have no immune system, or have an underlying condition to die from the flu. And everybody's throwing around numbers. The flu pneumonia was 68,000 people. Diabetes kills 25,000 a year. Right. Diabetes is manageable, yet people still died. Think about that. 25,000 people died from diabetes, and there's medicine to help you live with diabetes. So again, you got pneumonia or you got a flu or you got something like that, and the underlying cause was your diabetes. That's what you died from. You died from your diabetes not causing anything. Cardiac arrest, 20,000 heart attacks. Okay, why'd you have a heart attack? Was your heart weak? Did you go to the doctor regularly? Were you eating healthy? What's the age group? These numbers are just thrown out there. The CDC basically said, look, here's the numbers, which are still climbing. If you look at the numbers, only these people died of straight COVID. These people all had underlying conditions. That doesn't make it better. That doesn't mean that the disease is fake. Not in any way, shape, or form. It simply doesn't. The underlying, it frustrates me because you're trying to educate sheep that are at your workplace or where you hang out that just don't get it and just go, yeah, it's all a lie, it's all bullshit. There's still, who's lying about the numbers? What numbers are a lie? Because the CDC is just giving numbers. The World Health Organization is trying to get everybody on board to create a vaccine faster, and the United States turned around and immediately went, nah, we're not going to be involved in yours. So where are we getting ours? From Russia? Or are we getting ours from our own home country that's probably not going to test it? I'm not going to give it to my kids and then have them grow a third arm or have a whole other disease or a liver failure or something like that just because they got that. There's a lot of things that you need to look at in the news that not necessarily is informative, but there's a lot of things that are coming out now with antitrust. Apple kind of started this, or I shouldn't say Apple didn't start this, but what people need to start looking at is the strange way that Microsoft is suddenly getting involved in all this stuff. Now, let me say first that Microsoft as a company has already come out and said that Windows 10 is going to be the last Windows. They're not going to do any huge overhauls, just going to be updates and things like that. Good. Windows 10 is not bad. People complain about it, but it really isn't that bad. They need to get their update shit together. Like the first Tuesday of the month is patch day, and you can almost guarantee it's going to break. I would dare say 30% of the computers it's on. So they got to get that shit straightened out. But the U.S. House Antitrust Subcommittee has an ongoing investigation into the digital markets. Now, this is personified by what's going on between Epic and Apple. It's also what's going on with TikTok and everybody else. So you have a lot of these. And the thing that people need to look at and pay attention to is the fact that when this antitrust committee called the big tech companies, okay, you can see it on C-SPAN, look it up. You had Apple represented, and we've covered this on the show. Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook represented. But Microsoft was not represented. Well, apparently it's because Microsoft was the one that spearheaded this and put this all out there. They weren't even there. They were like a little 12-year-old. They met with the committee prior and said, well, you should really investigate all these other companies because they're really kind of screwing things up. Come on, Microsoft. You haven't done shit in years. You haven't done anything. You're staying alive by Windows 10, which nobody's really buying too much anymore because you don't have to. If your computer breaks, you reset it. It's married to the motherboard, so you don't even need to buy discs or anything anymore. Xbox is literally keeping you guys alive, in my opinion. You have no other branding. You have no other thing. Every time you come out with something that's halfway decent, you ruin it. You bought Nokia, folded. You had your own phone system, dropped it. Do I even need to mention Windows 8? So there's a lot of little things that they haven't done. All their other little assets that they have are just the drizzling shits. They just suck. So why are they constantly like out of the loop? Outlook is broken. If you've ever tried to use Mail on any Microsoft platform, the Mail app that they usually provide is absolutely horrid. And like I said, Outlook, which a lot of people are used to using, Outlook's just garbage. Outlook barely works. It's broken. You can read the forums on it. It's just broken. And it doesn't look like they're going to fix it anytime soon. They forced a browser update from Microsoft Edge, or the Edge browser, that forced it down to people. I can't tell you how many people I had calling and coming in at work that they would start up their computer in the morning. It was a black screen. Then when they finally got it started, they had that blue screen, which looked like they reinstalled Windows. That was basically just from the Edge browser. And then when they finally booted it into the operating system, wham, Edge browser's right there, full screen, can't do anything about it. A lot of these people have gotten hit before with malware and the call from Microsoft. All of these people are paranoid. So seeing this just scared the shit out of them. And they show back up at my place wondering what the hell to do and how to fix it. Then you add to the fact that somehow Microsoft got the president himself to authorize them to buy TikTok. Again, this is going to be another IP that they absolutely destroy. They'll take it, they'll mold it into something of their own, and it's going to be absolute garbage, which is what they do. It's just what they do. They can't hold an IP. They can't. I don't understand it. Now, add to this, all of this, I mean, we got to start looking at Microsoft a little bit more closely. Add to this that the DoD recently, and I think we talked on the show maybe a month or two ago, about the DoD trying to get the Jedi Cloud contract. So the Jedi Cloud contract is the Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure. And what this is basically cloud computing for the military infrastructure and the government as it's on its own. The entire military and the entire government is going to be on there. There's two problems with this. Number one, everybody wanted a piece of this. Now, you have to understand that there's large servers all around this country. Google, Amazon's got S3, Apple's got their iCloud, which is secure. So there's a lot of these massive iCloud servers. I talk with clients all the time about how they need to start trusting the cloud a little bit more. It's a safe and good backup. Microsoft somehow weaseled their way into getting this massive, I think it's $10 billion contract to do this cloud service, and they're not even the best. Like other companies that were looking into it, like, well, you should probably do Amazon. Their S3 is pretty solid and it's big, is going to handle that. And of course, you don't want to deal with all the governmental issues and lockdowns and all the protocols that they have to go through, because it's going to be annoying. But they still somehow got themselves involved in it and won it. You're going to get other contracts on the side. You're going to get other things. Come on, look at it like this. Windows 10 is literally everywhere. So every government agency, they're all using Windows, whether it's Windows 7 because it's secure or they can secure it, or it's a closed system inside their building and it's running Windows 10. They're still using a Windows-based system. And now they already have the stranglehold on the operating systems, and now they're going to get the cloud-based solutions as well. There is something very funny and funky going on with Microsoft nowadays. I implore you, as one of the BGFG listeners, just look into this a little bit more. You'll be surprised at what you find from Microsoft. There's not a lot that they're doing, but they're able to buy and get a lot of things. Every computer you buy, I'm sure the manufacturers are paying them, but every computer you buy has Windows 10 on it, and you're never going to need to buy another version of Windows 10, really, unless you replace your hard drive. And then if you take it to someplace like a Geek Squad or Ubreak iFix or a mom and pop, they usually have a version there they're going to load on it. But 90% of the time, it's married to your motherboard, so you don't even need to worry. You just reinstall it. So they're not making money on their OS anymore. They don't make a phone anymore. Their Duo and their little crap shit that they come out with is mostly shit. The only thing I will give them is their new Microsoft Pro tablet. I think it's Surface Pro, I think it's called, is a solid unit. It is really nice. Don't ever try to repair it, but if it works, it's a solid device. So just keep your eye out on Microsoft and don't sleep on them, because they got some shit going on that they're not telling people, which I think is kind of awful. All right, that's enough of that bullshit, because I want to get into the second half, because the second half is going to be much more fun. Music this week, what I chose for music was the Blue Stones. We've done a Blue Stones song before, but I don't know, something about them. Very much like the Black Keys, two-man band. They're out of Canada. I think they founded in 2014. This track is 2018. So what we're going to do is we're going to listen to a little Blue Stones. Black Hole is the name of this track, and we'll catch you on the other side for some very fun gaming news. Help if I put the mic back on. Bluestone's very good stuff. Loving it. All right, let's see where we are. So, in the gaming section tonight, that's going to be so much fun.
Gaming.
So first up this week is one thing that I'm just super, super excited about. The 30 series cards are out. Or going to be out. So they're finally here. It's absolutely amazing. I don't even know. Okay, so NVIDIA, right now the top of the food chain is the NVIDIA 2080 Ti. It smokes everything else. I have an AMD Radeon 7, which they discontinued, which was their flagship. Great card, 12 gigs of RAM or 16 gigs of RAM on the card. Great card. The 2080 Ti is better than my card. My card was sub 1,000. 2080 Ti is above 1,000. In fact, it's around 1,400. So NVIDIA, out of the blue, comes out and says, oh, yeah, we got our new 30 series cards. Really? They are, I put a picture up. If you're watching the live video, you'll see a picture, or just search them up. But I think they're beautiful looking cards. They are kind of like the founders cards are kind of like blower cards almost. They usually have two fans on one side and then one fan on the other, whereas a lot of the blower cards just have one fan. I like blower cards as opposed to the high-end cards, the multiple fan cards. I just think aesthetically they look better to me. So what they're doing, I can't even believe it. So they come out with these cards, and let's start at the bottom card. The bottom card where they drew the line in the sand is the RTX 3070. Okay, 3070 card. This is a $500 8GB card. It's entry level, and by its specs alone, for what they're saying, and again, we got to wait for the real world ones. From the specs alone, it's going to be equivalent to the 2080 Ti. Period. It's a $500 card, and it's going to be equivalent to a 2080. That's incredible. It's just incredible, and that's the stats they put out. But then after that, you have the 3080, and this is where a lot of people I think are going to sit, is at the 3080 card run. The 3080 is $700. It's got 10 gigs of RAM on it. It will double the speed of a 2080 Ti. The Ti, it's going to double the speed of that card for $700. This is a no-brainer. And then, if that wasn't good enough, they have a step above that too, which is going to be the replacement for their Titan cards, and this is the 3090. Now, this card's a $1,400 card, but it's also got 24 gigs of RAM. NVIDIA's not even calling this their flagship. Their flagship, they're saying, is the 3080 card, because everybody's going to be all over the shit. I'm an AMD guy, and I kind of want one of these, just because it's $700 and it's blindingly fast. The 3090, again, it takes up 3 slots. Normal video cards take up 2 slots on your computer. This one takes up 3. It's a massive card. Does it destroy everything? Yeah, it's faster than the 3080, but the 3090 is really designed more for developers, people that are crunching numbers, scientists, artists, video producers, things like that. Not necessarily for gamers. Does it work with gaming? Yes. Is it fast like gaming? Yes. But you can literally save half the money and get a 3080 and have the same performance for the most part. You'll get a little bit of a performance boost from a 3090, but still $1,400. I just don't know what to say. They're killer cards, and I can't wait to get my hands on one or build a computer for somebody or something like that. It's unbelievably good. Asus, MSI, and Gigabit have already announced that they're going to have their version, and you'll see the picture in the live show. Again, it's Asus, it's Gigabyte. They're going to have multiple fans on it, RGB and everything else. But if you look at the original cards that NVIDIA is releasing, they are stunningly beautiful. I think they're beautifully built cards. They're wonderful. I have really nothing bad to say about that because they're good cards. Now, I'm an AMD fan. And with this, now we've heard about the Navi chips for a while that are supposed to be coming out, and we've never seen them. The Radeon 7, which I have, is their flagship card. Their 5700, 5800 XT cards are great cards. They're really great entry-level cards. They're not going to give you the performance that a 1080 Ti, 2080 Ti are really going to give you. They're more on par with like a 2070, maybe a 2070 Super if you handle it right in a specific game. But for the most part, AMD just kind of dropped the ball, in my opinion. The Radeon 7 is a good card. It's not the greatest card. I expected it to compete with the 2080 Ti, and it doesn't. It just doesn't. 2080 Ti is a better card. But for what I need, this one works fine, and I'm an AMD person. But they discontinued the card in less than a year. And they haven't announced the replacement. They haven't announced their Navi ones. It's just limbo. But what they did do was, and again, AMD, I love you, but you're making it hard, man. You're making it hard to be a fan of yours without doing stupid shit. You're kind of like, I can't even say Microsoft. So NVIDIA announced all these wonderful new cards, and Asus and Gigabyte and MSI announced their takes on the cards, and AMD comes out with a bicycle. Yep, their big announcement was a freaking mountain bike that has an AMD logo on it. It's like $500-$600. Not even the point. The point is that you came out with a fucking bicycle instead of a video card. What the hell is wrong with you people? I mean, are you even thinking at all anymore? At all? At all? No, you're not. Come out with a Navi. Make sure it's faster than, or as fast as the 30 series, and the competition will be back on. But if you don't answer NVIDIA's 30 series cards, you're going to be back to the land of the processors. And then if you don't, if suddenly Intel comes out with something stupid and something cheap, you're going to be screwed on that level too. Right now, AMD processors are the way to go. Everybody will tell you that. Anybody who's worth a damn will tell you, get an AMD processor. They're a lot cheaper. They run better. But come on, AMD, you came out with a bike instead of a video card, you dumb shits. So another thing I want to bring up in stick style was Vader Immortal. My son has this on the Oculus. He loved it. It's only 2 episodes. It's a good VR. You get to have a lightsaber and everything, which is very, very cool. I've been waiting for it for a while, but I'm not getting myself an Oculus Rift. I just didn't want to. There's no reason. One game. I mean, it's going to be really good for one game. But they, it again, used to be exclusive on Oculus Rift. Now you're going to see it on the PlayStation VR. It's available now. It takes place over 3 episodes, Vader Immortal. My 2 kids have played it, and they said it was okay, but not amazing. But I want to see it for myself, because this was our generation. We are the ones, I think. We're the ones, we didn't have lightsabers. Like, we had the glow-in-the-dark swords, but we didn't have lightsabers like they have now. And my God, if I was like 17, 18, 19, I'd be begging my parents for the actual lightsaber ones, the fighting ones that you can fight with that light up. I mean, those things are badass. But I want to see what this is going to take. So when I take my vacation in a couple of weeks, I'm actually going to sit down and probably play all 3 episodes. I'm doing it on vacation because I want to literally enjoy it 100%. I want to just not have to rush and play 5-10 minutes of it and then have to bail. Another thing that came out, or that was announced, that I thought was just the coolest thing for our age group. Again, we're talking about Generation X. So I think I've talked on the store on the show before about what I've done and how I came about. So my first experiences with anything computer-wise would have to be a combination of 2 things. It would be my mother's Apple IIe, where I actually got to click on things, and I would click on pictures and then go take a shower and come back, and maybe the picture would be up. AOL. But I learned how to use a computer that way. Then I went to a friend's house. That friend, it was a friend of my father's. His son had a Commodore 64, which I was amazed about. I thought this was like high-level shit right here. I'm like, what are you doing? That's a floppy drive. And I was playing a bunch of games on there, and I really enjoyed it. My first take on a computer would be an Apple IIe. Around the same time, my first take on video games or console games, or even, not really console games, I would say computer games would be a Commodore 64. And then shortly thereafter was my foray into IRC and chat and heavy computing on a 386 PC. But the C64 is going to be coming out. I'm going to get it. It's going to be... Look, the C64, the Commodore 64 was originally like $500 in the day, which would make it, I think, with inflation, somewhere around $1,000 probably. This is not going to be like that. This is going to be on par with like the mini Nintendos and, God willing, for Christmas, the mini Nintendo 64. But it should have the same kind of feel to it. It's going to have up-to-date connectivity. It's going to still have the C64. In 81, they started with the VIC-20, and then that produced into the Commodore 64. They originally wanted to put the Commodore 64, or the design of it, or how it was going to be run. That board was supposed to be in arcade cabinets, and they were like, nope, we're going to make a computer out of it, a home computer that you can play games and do some word processing on it. And it was a big hit. It really was. There was a lot of homes that I was going into when I was younger that had Commodore 64s for whatever reason, whether it was playing Oregon Trail, where you die of dysentery, or it was rock and roll racing, or there was a bunch, and then everybody had these janky joysticks that you would buy at Radio Shack. It was a good time. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be coming out in December, so I'm curious to see what the price point is going to be, but I can't see it being above $100. And that's a good place to be, because anybody that has that nostalgia or wants to live into that nostalgia is going to buy one, I think. It's just good stuff. All right, let's get into the last segment of today. So, as you can see, the title of the show, or if you're watching it now, is 2020 is like the Nancy Grace of years. Because it's just been a dumpster fire and an absolute shit show. Kind of like Nancy Grace. I was perusing the news to find stuff for the stories, and as you well know, the East Coast getting hurricane season. We should be done with it now, but again, we had some serious hurricanes that people are still dealing with in the lower East Coast. West Coast has got fires that are still going on. That's scary, man. That gender reveal party ignited one. I mean, that's crazy. The Midwest is getting tornadoes all the time. But apparently we're not done with that. Not only do we have an asteroid coming close yet again to the Earth, it's not going to hit us, but it's coming close, coming by the Earth. It's getting dangerous. It's almost as if somebody's aiming. Anyway. And now there's a fucking super typhoon heading toward Japan and South Korea. A super typhoon. What the fuck, 2020? Can you just give us a break, please? I mean, this is just, we have people getting shot because of the color of their skin. We have typhoons, hurricanes, fires. Don't even go through the political bullshit that's going on right now. And then we have a pandemic. Okay? We need 2020 to just fucking end. You know, this better be the best damn Christmas ever. People better just... one of the things we always talk about during Christmas time on the show is that feeling of peace, that Christmas week. Usually the day before Christmas, or 2 days before Christmas, Christmas Eve day, and then Christmas Day itself. Sometimes the day after. But those 3 days right there, you can just feel it. The world is at peace most of the time. And that's what I always loved. Everybody's kind. Everybody's generous. Everybody's giving. There's people that are going to be upset, and there's people that are going to be stressed because of the holidays. But for the most part, it's just a good feeling. It's freaking Christmas. And that needs to happen this year. So if you're watching this or listening to this, I implore you to do what you can. Start now to plan, but make Christmas the best time for you. I don't mean throw a massive party and invite 400 people. I mean, just make it the best for you. Plan on having certain movies that you want to watch, or, you want certain people to make sure that they come over on certain days or something. Try to lock that in now, because we're going to need this. Going into 2021, you just hope it's not going to be worse. You hope. And as always, you hope, and sometimes your prayers are answered. For instance, Flash. Adobe Flash, the bane of every computer technician's existence. So we've explained it before, but I'll explain it again in a nutshell. Flash and Java are like Tupperware containers. So when your wife or your husband says, yeah, that chicken's in the fridge, and you open up the Tupperware and there's chicken, there's rice, there's vegetables, there's something else. There's always something else in there. Downloading Flash and downloading Java are very similar to that. You don't know exactly what you're getting. And from what I can tell, the worst culprit, in my opinion, right now is Facebook. Facebook games, what they'll do is a developer, and I've actually had a developer tell me this. Developer, and he develops several games, several dozen. As the injection of the game on Facebook, say, and it goes up. People are liking it, then it'll eventually plateau. Once it plateaus, they decide, okay, let's see if we can make a little bit more money at it, whether microtransactions or information, whatever the case is. When the numbers start dipping, that's when they start injecting the Flash thing. And I've seen it happen right in front of me. It'll ask for Flash. I know I put the latest Flash in that customer's computer. You need to update Flash. No, I don't. But if you click on it, and I've watched customers do this, they click on it, see, and it doesn't do anything. Right, because they dropped a different payload. And then it'll happen again. And then after usually the third time, the game that they were trying to use will suddenly work. And then they're like, oh, okay, that's great. You can go into their download history and see 15 freaking downloads of Java or Flash. It's absolutely shit. It's the drizzling shits, and it sucks. Well, Adobe said maybe 3 months ago, we reported on the show that Adobe said they're going to end Flash support forever. They're like, it's a dumpster fire. We can't get rid of it. We can't slow it down. We can't even control it. We're just going to end support for it completely. We're going to sever the servers, and there's not going to be any downloads from it. So it's not going to happen. They're going to keep it for enterprise people here and there, because there is people that have different shops and retail and chains that have a very scarce system, but they rely on this. So until they find another way, they're going to have to do that. Microsoft's program manager said that the company will end support for Flash in Microsoft Edge, Edge browser, and Internet Explorer on December 21st of this year, December 31st of this year. So that's Microsoft's actually saying that. So Microsoft's on board with that. And again, I don't understand what Microsoft's doing half the time, but this is good. They're saying that the diminished usage of the technology and the availability of better, more secure options such as HTML5, WebGL, and WebAssembly, which is all stuff that's built into the new browsers. All of that surpasses Flash. It's not needed. Java 2, really, for that matter. Disabling Flash Player by default won't kill it off, though. Like I said before, some companies, as shitty as they are, might have to keep it going so that they can do some of their proprietary software. I get that. Just keep it quiet. But on the open internet, it's very good that they're going to be dumping this shit down, because it causes nothing but problems. That's all it does, is cause problems. What doesn't cause problems is the fact that finally, after all these years, Generation X has got somewhat of a deal on something that was promised to us when we were younger. And that is flying cars, my friend. There's a company in Japan called Skydrive. And finally, we get what we deserve, what was promised. We get a flying car. So this little bad boy is going to be out probably in about 2023, because they still have to go through a lot of regulations. But the vehicle itself, it works. There's a picture up on the website, on the show notes, and on the live cast. And you'll see it. It's about 2 parking spots wide. It's fully electric. There's no fossil fuels at all. And this is a one-seater. And this is a way that you can fly to work, which would be great, because a straight line is much quicker than the 1,500 turns and shit I have to go through on a highway. The only problem I have with this is there's going to be idiots. There's going to be idiots that fly too low. There's going to be idiots that damn near crash into each other, that who has the right of way. So there's a lot of things that have to be overcome. But the proof of concept is here, and the proof of concept is done. It's there. They flew it around a parking lot. It's legit. It's working. They just got to get the legislation done. That's going to be very difficult, because you're going to have aviators. You're going to have low flying. You're going to have different ceilings you have to hit or not hit. So it's going to be interesting. But they're saying 2023. It's working now, but by the time they get legislation going, it's probably going to be about 2023. So one of the last things I want to do, and that's pretty much it for the show, but I usually try to bring up some sort of bonus material. So this week I was kind of shocked, and I know Fremo doesn't agree with me, but myself, my wife, we watch professional wrestling. We enjoy it. We enjoy the art of it, being a martial artist. I enjoy the way, in martial arts, we're going to hit you. That's just the way it is. When you're in martial arts, you're going to get hit. It toughens you up, and it makes you feel how. And sometimes things go bad. I admit, sometimes your punch wasn't pulled properly, or you hit a little too hard. This sort of thing happens, but it toughens you up. It hardens you. We love wrestling for that reason, for the idea of moving people into different scenarios, the athleticism. It's just, and it used to be good stories and compelling, but again, it's like a male soap opera, but it's fun to us. One thing I do know several professional wrestlers on the indie circuits, and I enjoy knowing the business aspect of it because it's quite intriguing to me. So there was a post sent out by the WWE that stated that they have to pull back all of the social media things and third-party things that they're doing. And what this meant, and I didn't realize it at first, I just figured it was, no more ribbon cuttings in Albuquerque, because somebody did something stupid there, or there wasn't social distancing, or that's how somebody got sick. And it's not. So you have people like Paige is on Twitch. You have Up, Down, Down, which is hugely popular. You have a lot of people doing their own thing. Asuka's just built her own computer on live stream. So you have a lot of these little things going on. And now they've actually pulled it back. And the problem that I have with this is that I've known this for years. The reason why a lot of these, and people don't realize it. So let me break it down for you. How a wrestler gets paid. And I don't know this for a fact. I don't work in the industry. This is just what I've compiled over the years of watching and learning and talking to other wrestlers and things like that. So on the main or in the main field, you'll get paid for jobs. If you go to your local wrestling show, you might make $20, $50 because you're getting your name out there. You're building a reputation, and you're working on your art. So you get almost no money, and then you have to travel to these different venues. If you're on the East Coast, you're traveling up and down the East Coast trying to make money. You might work all week long, leave work Thursday night, get into a car or a plane on Friday morning, go fly somewhere, rent a car if you don't get a ride, which they literally do. They try to find fans and other wrestlers. Get in the car, go make $50, $100, $200, and then fly back home. So this is something that ongoes. Now, with that said, remember that they're independent contractors, even at an independent level. You're getting money, and you got to explain yourself. Stone Cold Steve Austin, one of the most popular people, was working in Texas on the weekends, and then during the weekdays, he was working on a loading dock. So a lot of these wrestlers do that until you make it to the mainstream. The mainstream would be like an AEW, WCW back in the day, WWE, and now it'd be Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling. Until you make it to one of those four shows, Pro Gorilla as well, so maybe 4 or 5. Until you make it to those 4 or 5 shows, you're kind of paying your own way a lot of times. Now, when they wrestle, the higher up on the card you are, the more money you make, and I believe it's still like that. You're all making good money. You have a downside. So you have, even if you're not being used, you have a certain amount of money you're going to make a year. Let's just say hypothetically, and again, I don't know if any of this is right, but let's say the downside for a wrestler is $80,000 a year. So that $80,000 is yours. You're getting paid that guaranteed. You're making $80,000 a year. But with that $80,000, and that downside might be a lot less, with that $80,000, you have to provide your own travel. You have to provide your own hotel expenses. The only time that WWE ever provides those is if you're going overseas. I believe they supply the air travel. But everything else is yours. Rent-a-cars, food, clothing a lot of times, gimmicks, the things you might bring to the ring or something. A lot of times that's something that you're paying for. Ric Flair's a good example of having robes made. Those robes were like $12,000, $15,000 each in the 70s and 80s. And he had like 30 of them. So you're investing into yourself. Well, all of these guys are independent contractors. And a lot of them start to learn, especially the younger ones that had side hustles. Now, you'll see like Steve Austin does a podcast and makes money off of that. And, some other people might have protein drinks or other things that they're kind of selling or endorsing to get a little bit more money, to get a side hustle. You know, you're going to get residuals. You're going to get residuals. You're going to get stuff like that from action figures and stuff, but it's not a lot. And don't forget, you're still paying for all of your travel. Plus, you're doing everything that they want you to do. So you're going to get paid to do everything you want, to get exposed so that you can get on the TV. And when you get on TV, the higher up you go in the card, like if you're the main event, say, you're going to be paid a lot different than you were from the person that was in segment 2 when everybody was, first, I'm watching it tonight. There's different segments on TV that they value more than others. Well, pulling back all of this stuff, apparently the head office, what they call Stanford, has put it out there that everybody needs to pull back from that. That you not only don't own the rights to your gimmick, which was theirs, but apparently now there's some sort of gray area where you might not even own the rights to your name because your name's what's being used as an intellectual property while you're under contract. But you're still an independent wrestler. You're not an employee. So you don't even have health coverage. None of these wrestlers have health coverage. Now, again, Vince is known. Vince McMahon is very well known that when serious shit happens, he will pay for your medical bill. He will help you out. He's helped out so many wrestlers. Their wellness policy is really good. They will help you try to get sober if you want to get sober and clean. So there's these little caveats here and there, but the bottom line is they're still not getting health insurance. They still don't have a pension. They still don't have a retirement. That's why a lot of the old vintage wrestlers would be sitting in cars driving to the next town, and some young guy would be sitting in the back and say, "What do you recommend? Save your money, kid." Because you're always buy something that you can buy a house outright, buy a car outright, invest in another car, and buy that outright and keep that in the garage. That way, if shit goes sideways, you have to sell it. And I just think it's kind of shitty that after all these years, and I get it, now Vince is a Fortune 500 company. He's a billionaire. I think that, and if you do watch wrestling, you'll know that the Thunderdome concept, I think, is brilliant. You have screens and cameras all around that people can watch live all around the arena. You have the same arena. Nobody's traveling. You can pump in sound as you see fit. So boos and cheers and everything else, and it should coincide. But it's also going to follow your narrative, what you want, which is good too. Some people get over, some people won't. So the Thunderdome idea is great, but now the only time you're going to make money once the pandemic is completely done, the only way you're going to make money is with house shows, and house shows aren't going to exactly pull down a lot of money. But those house shows can make or break a talent. You don't know, because in wrestling, a lot of times what happens is how the crowds react is how popular you are, how you're going to get pushed, how you're going to get higher up on the card, how you're going to get more matches. That's the only way to do it. Now they're pulling back the social media aspect, which again was another way. You might go on Up, Up, Down, Down, Austin Creed's show. He's a wrestler. You might go on Up, Up, Down, Down and play a video game with him or something. That's gonna push you to another group of people that maybe only like that particular wrestler. Paige is a female wrestler. I think she's semi-retired. I don't think she can wrestle anymore. She does a Twitch show. She just recently had to change her name from Paige to her real name because they wouldn't let her continue on with it. There's a lot of wrestlers that have side hustles, and now they're not even going to be able to do that. There's no clear-cut way to make money. If there was no pandemic, then you could judge by the crowd. You can get up there higher if you wanted to. If you're doing house shows, you practice your craft on the house shows, and then maybe you pull down one of the house shows, and somebody's there, Pritchard or Vince McMahon or one of the McMahons are there. And, oh, well, he did really good at the house show, and people are really responding to him. People are really popping, and you'll put him on TV. Then if that goes well, but you can't do that during a pandemic. You don't have that. Again, Thunderdome is a great idea, a great concept, but you don't have the ability to do that. You used to fill it with other wrestlers that knew when to cheer, but it wasn't organic the way it should be, the way wrestling works. And the fact that you're not paying these guys anymore and you're still calling them an independent contractor, I think we're beyond that now, Vince. I think it's time to make them into employees. Use the intellectual rights that they have. Let them keep their own name. It's their damn name. If you want to use their real name, that's your prerogative. You guys need to come up with some sort of agreement. There's all sorts of people that have done that. Rey Mysterio, all sorts of people that have made agreements to keep the rights to their name or their gimmick. But the bottom line is, Vince, you get enough money now. It's time to rethink how all of this works with the pandemic. Thunderdome's working. Stop making these people pay for their own insurance. Stop making them pay for a lot of their own stuff. Help out these wrestlers that are making you a billionaire. That's what I think. Well, I believe that's just about going to wrap her up for this week. I really don't have a whole lot else to say. I'm hoping to get another one done by the end of this week. That would be wonderful. All right, so that's it for this week. Maybe Freemo will be on next week. Tents down, show's over.
So you can find more of this garbage at bgfgonline.com. You can also send us an email with your questions or suggestions at bgfgshow@gmail.com. Find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast Podcast, Castro, Castbox, Podchaser, and YouTube. Thank you for listening.